In 1945, a 27-year-old man named Sam Walton bought his first store for $25,000 in Newport, Arkansas. It was a failing Ben Franklin variety store that the previous owner was desperate to sell. Everyone told Walton he was making a mistake. The location was terrible, the inventory was outdated, and discount retail was considered a dead-end business for people who couldn't succeed in real retail. 50 years later, that same man had built the largest company in human history. Walmart would eventually employ over 2 million people and generate more revenue than the GDP of most countries. But here's what's remarkable about Sam Walton's approach. He didn't rely on revolutionary technology, venture capital, or even innovative products. He succeeded by obsessively perfecting 3 simple principles that most business owners completely ignore. The first principle that defined how Sam Walton worked was what he called aggressive humility. This wasn't false modesty or strategic positioning. Walton genuinely believed that every person he met knew something valuable that he didn't, and his entire business philosophy was built around systematically extracting that knowledge. When Walton visited competing stores, which he did religiously every week for 40 years, he didn't just observe from a distance. He would approach floor employees, stockroom workers, and even janitors to ask detailed questions about their operations. How do you handle your inventory rotation? What do customers complain about most? How does your manager track shrinkage? He treated every conversation as a masterclass taught by someone with frontline experience he lacked. His employees noticed this immediately. Helen Walton, his wife, once said, "Sam has an unusual ability to make the person he's talking to feel like the most important person in the world at that moment." This wasn't a technique he learned from a business book. Walton was genuinely curious about how things worked, and that curiosity made people want to share their insights with him. The practical result was that Walmart became a learning machine that continuously absorbed the best practices from every competitor, supplier, and employee interaction. While other retailers were trying to protect their trade secrets, Walton was systematically collecting everyone else's and improving on them. The second principle was what Walton called expense obsession. This went far beyond normal cost-cutting measures. Walton tracked expenses with the intensity that most entrepreneurs reserve for tracking revenue. He believed that every unnecessary dollar spent was a dollar that couldn't be passed on to customers as lower prices, and lower prices were the foundation of everything else he was trying to build. But Walton's expense obsession wasn't about being cheap. It was about being precise. He would fly commercial airlines instead of private jets, stay in budget hotels instead of luxury accommodations, and drive used pickup trucks instead of luxury cars. But he would also invest millions in the most advanced inventory management systems, employee training programs, and distribution centers, because these expenses directly supported his core mission of delivering lower prices to customers. This precision extended to how he thought about his own time. Walton calculated that every hour he spent on activities that didn't directly improve Walmart's ability to serve customers better or cheaper was an hour that cost the company money. So he eliminated almost everything else from his schedule. No golf, no fancy dinners, no industry conferences, unless they provided specific operational insights he could implement immediately. The third principle was systematic experimentation. Walton treated every Walmart store as a laboratory for a lie, testing new approaches to retail operations. Unlike most business leaders who implement changes company-wide and hope for the best, Walton would test every significant change in a small number of stores, measure the results obsessively, and only scale successful experiments. This experimentation mindset extended to hiring, inventory management, store layouts, pricing strategies, and customer service approaches. If a store manager in Arkansas discovered that greeting customers at the door increased sales, Walton would test that approach in 10 other stores before deciding whether to implement it across all locations. What made this systematic experimentation so powerful was Walton's willingness to admit when experiments failed. Most executives try to justify failed initiatives to protect their credibility. Walton celebrated failed experiments because they eliminated approaches that didn't work and freed up resources to test new possibilities. Here's what's most instructive about how Sam Walton worked. None of these principles required exceptional talent, expensive resources, or favorable market conditions. Aggressive humility, expense obsession, and systematic experimentation are available to any business owner willing to prioritize learning over ego, precision over comfort, and evidence over assumptions. Modern entrepreneurs often look for complex strategies and sophisticated frameworks to differentiate their businesses. Walton proved that relentless execution of simple principles, consistently applied over decades, can create results that sophisticated strategies rarely achieve. The man who started with a failing variety store in rural Arkansas didn't just build the world's largest company. He demonstrated that business success comes not from having the best initial ideas, but from having the best systems for continuously improving those ideas through direct contact with reality. Sam Walton worked by staying curious about what he didn't know, staying precise about what he spent, and staying experimental about what he implemented. In a business world obsessed with innovation and disruption, he proved that the fundamentals, executed with extraordinary consistency, remain the most reliable path to extraordinary results. The question isn't whether these principles can work in modern business. Walmart's continued dominance 50 years after Walton established these approaches proves they can. The question is whether modern entrepreneurs are willing to prioritize learning, precision, and experimentation over the more glamorous aspects of building a business.